Has anyone told you that you are what you eat? Or if you keep making that silly face, your face will get stuck that way? These are things that we tell kids a lot. And it's kind of funny because in a sense, these things are very true. We are what we think. So I know we've talked a little bit about faulty sensory awareness. I can link that video below, but the sort of crash course for faulty sensory awareness is that we do things that we don't realize we're doing, and that things feel differently than they may look. So using our sense of what feels right or what feels wrong to sort of judge what we're doing is not going to provide us any repeatable success. So when we think that our body is a certain way, we begin to coordinate ourselves around that belief. And if that information is inaccurate, then we begin to reinforce malcoordination. So the Alexander technique looks to reestablish coordination based on how our parts are designed to function, both separately and as a whole. So something that works great in coordination with the Alexander technique when we're looking at sort of these thoughts that we have about our body and how they are wrong and can sort of reinforce this malcoordination, something that can really help is called body mapping. Now, body mapping was developed by William Conable, and he used it while he was teaching Alexander technique to string players. So body mapping is not the Alexander technique, okay? And it cannot be substituted for with the Alexander technique, but if it's used in conjunction, it can help students discover their inaccurate maps of their body and things that they have sort of misperceived about themselves, and be able to correct these things and then use the Alexander technique to develop this coordination and refine this efficiency that our body was designed to have in its use and functioning. Barbara Conable writes in her book, How to Learn the Alexander Technique, "The body map is simple and profound. Assume that you found a map of your body somewhere in your mind or nervous system or psyche or whatever you like to call your internal processing part of yourself that makes information available to you about you. Assume it's easy to gain access to this map. I have never asked a person a question about his body and not got an answer. If I say, 'Where is the joint of your thigh with your pelvis?' I always get an answer. Sometimes the answer is accurate, and sometimes it's cloud cuckoo land, and sometimes it's just a little off. In any case, the person will always try to move according to how he thinks he's structured. When there is a conflict between the map and reality, the map will always win in movement. Always. I have never seen an exception to it. It's inevitable because the map is what shapes our experience, and how we can change it is only by conscious effort." So I know a lot of us out there haven't always given very much thought to our anatomy or how sort of we're designed to function, or all of the parts and pieces of us and how they relate to each other. And I think that's totally fine. Usually the only time that we sort of pay attention to these things is when we're hurting. And we don't necessarily need to understand all of the anatomical parts and musculature and ligaments and connective tissue and all of that to find a healthy way of being, but body mapping can be really, really helpful, especially to understand the big parts of us and our structural integrity, okay? And so what we're going to look at today is the back and the spine, and I want to talk about some common mismappings that people have and how these kind of affect what they do with their bodies and the amount of effort they use to sort of support themselves. So the first thing I want you to do is sort of think about your back and your spine, okay? And I want you to think, where does your spine start? Where does it end? What sort of shape does it have? And like approximately where is it located in your body, okay? So just take a second, think of that. You can draw a map of your body if you want, a picture, an image, whatever you like, however you want to sort of start to think about this part of yourself. So one of the most common mismappings is where our spine is located. I think a lot of people think that our spine is located on our back. And I can sort of understand this because we can feel our spine there. We can feel all of those bony processes and things like that. But our spine is actually, the support of it actually comes from the front of the spine. And that's a lot more closer to the middle of us than I think a lot of people think. If you think of a freestanding lamp, right, the pole that goes to the base is in the center of that base. If it was off to one side, there wouldn't be any structure or stability in that lamp. And we're much the same. If we think that our spine is in our back, then all of our musculature is going to have to work a lot harder to support ourselves. Everything that's in front of the spine would have to be supported if our spine was in our back, and we would not really have any balance or stability. So in actuality, we are supported a lot more like a tree trunk, where our spine, that front of our spine, which is much closer to our middle, is designed to be the weight-bearing part of our spine, and that is where our support and our stability comes from. Another thought that people have is that the spine sort of starts at the neck and then goes down to probably about where our buttocks start. And this is actually inaccurate as well. The place where our spine meets our head is actually directly between our ears. So that is where our atlanto-occipital joint is. That's where the skull meets the spine. And then that goes all the way down, and it actually goes all the way to our hip bones. So our coccyx goes actually like a little bit even below into our hip bone area. So essentially, sort of not to get too technical here, our spine is everything from our head to our legs. And now we've talked a little bit about the shape of the spine before, but what we sort of have is a secondary curve in our cervical spine with our neck. And then we have a primary curve through our thoracic spine, which is sort of our upper back area. And then we go to a secondary curve in our lumbar spine, that's our low back area. And then finishing off with that primary curve in our sacral spine, right where our sort of tailbone is, and where our spine meets up with our pelvis to form the connection that's going to bring us to our legs. So now that we've sort of talked about our spine anatomically, I want you to explore this new thought about the support of the spine, the structure of the spine, and the shape of the spine. And now that you have a more accurate map, does anything feel differently to you about the support structure and shape of your spine? So with this more accurate map of our back and our spine, I think it's really easy to see how body mapping in conjunction with the Alexander technique can really help us discover some of these inaccuracies that we have in how we think about our body, and then of course how we organize movement in our body. And so we'll continue to do some more exploring with this, because I think it can be super beneficial. I want to reiterate that body mapping is not the Alexander technique, okay? And they cannot be substituted for each other, but they work really, really well in conjunction with each other. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope that you enjoyed our talk about body mapping and sort of our experiments here on figuring out our spine and giving ourselves a more accurate map of what's going on there. Stay tuned for Sunday's activity video. I think we'll continue to do a little bit of body mapping and work on the arms a little bit, and potentially do then some fish arms activities with the Alexander technique. Thank you so much for watching. Remember to like and subscribe. If there's anything that you were looking for, anything more specific, or anything that you'd like me to go into depth on or to cover with you guys, always send me a message or write me a comment. I am happy to help.